This YouTube video is pretty cool. It's by Bantu City Diaries. Let's just start.
No one is excited about going on holiday to Africa. But why? Why don't people go on holiday to the various African countries? Why are there no tourists flocking to Nigeria, Uganda, Chad, or Somalia? Do they not like us because we are black? Really? Well, Barbados, Bermuda, and the Bahamas are black. Why then do they attract tourists from around the globe? But African countries don't. If lions, elephants, cheetahs, and the Maasai people went extinct tomorrow, half of the white and East Asian visitors to Africa would stop.
For me and my family, do you want to go to Africa? And it's like, nah. Why? Because the ancestors, some of them, they were sold by other Africans. Oops. The diseases, the tropical nature of Africa, it's a whole other animal. My only interest in going to Africa would be for the animals. Black people, they're in the Americas, they're in the Middle East. I think I have enough of my black brothers and sisters out there in other places, Barbados, Jamaica, all these places, right? I don't think I need to go to Cameroon and meet Mbappe's father's people, you know? It's like, I like watching their soccer team, but again,
White, East, South, and Southeast Asians not going on holiday to Black Africa. Simple. Our countries are too ugly, dirty, unattractive, and unsafe. We have not built anything that they'd like to see, and they may not make it back alive. Around 74 million people visit Africa each year. However, Morocco, Egypt, and Tunisia make up 44 million of the 74 million. South Africa takes home 10 million. That's 20 million left.
if you go on a trip in your favorite rocket ship to Africa, and then you are eating the fine cuisine, but then like a rat pops out, you're like, man, I could have at least seen this in New York. I don't need to go to Africa to see a rat. Asia has the most plastic in the water from pollution and all that. But Africa, definitely not my top 10 for travel destinations, right? Individual Moroccan people, they're chill, but sometimes they're a little bit too forward. Foreign women that are visiting, they don't have hijab on. And then the men are like, oh my gosh,
Thailand receives more tourists and visitors than the rest of sub-Saharan Africa, this time including South Africa. It is certainly not a black thing this time, but a black African thing, because the Bahamas receives 11 million tourists and visitors each year, and the Bahamas is black. Africa has rainforests like Brazil's, yet more people visit Brazil and its rainforest than they do Africa's. Why?
Brazil, you could go to a beach in Rio de Janeiro. You have options. You don't have to just go jungle. You could go to the beach for a month, and then you're like, oh, let me go on a 2-day trip into the jungle. So it's like a side quest. You get to see some howler monkeys or a jaguar. There's nothing else around the Congo. For me, do I need to see a Congo pygmy person? No. I already got Kevin Hart, and he's super funny and very personable. So I don't need to see other of these guys. Brazil got better food and drinks, and the people.
Nobody knows anything about the cuisine of Chad, the Central African Republic, Burundi, Togo, or Mali. Yet we all know Korean food, don't we? If you go to Taiwan, Japan, Thailand, or Korea, as soon as you land, you know you are in those countries from the airport. The signboards, cuisine, and overall setup represent the people. But when you land in Nigeria, Ghana, Angola, or Cote d'Ivoire, the people act and sound like fake Europeans than their actual country or culture.
A bunch of Africans currently go to Europe because they're trying to get education and get some money so then they can send remittances, send some money back to their families that remain on the continent of Africa. And he's saying, oh, a bunch of these Africans, they're feeling insecure, so they're acting like wannabe Europeans.
A descendant of slaves from Brazil, Colombia, or the US state of Mississippi who has made it their dream to visit the motherland, the land where their parents or their great-great-great-grandparents were extracted as slaves. Then they land in Nigeria and are greeted by a person who looks just like them but is called Goodluck Jonathan, speaks a funny accented English with grammar all over the place as their first language, and knows more about America and Europe than they do Africa. Imagine the disappointment in the face of the black descendant of slaves. He'd be like, I thought I was going to see a Dikembe Mutombo, not a bunch of people who can't wait to voluntarily go into slavery in Europe and America. What I'm trying to say is this: Africa has no authenticity. It has not managed to create a distinct identity, develop it, and build its various regions or nations around it. It has no decent infrastructure. It's wiping out its wildlife, cutting down trees that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old, and wreaking havoc on its environment, littering and defecating all over the place. Why would anyone want to go there on holiday? Kenya and Tanzania are the two black countries with the highest number of tourists and visitors, bringing home about 5 million tourists or visitors together. About half of that 5 million are there for the animals, not the people. From the Senegambia coastline stretching all the way to the Isla de Luanda, a 4,200-kilometer coastline passing through Guinea, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Benin, Nigeria, Cameroon, Gabon, and Angola. None of it is developed for tourism. The Gambia attracts about 200,000 visitors per year, but that's what Jamaica brings in 2 weeks. If you are a European, North American, East Asian, or any other region outside Africa, be honest with me. Have you ever considered going on holiday to the Congo, Cameroon, Chad, or the Central African Republic? I mean, that's if you've even ever heard of them. How about Spain, Thailand, the Dominican Republic, or Sri Lanka? The UAE, Bahrain, and Qatar host over 35 million tourists and visitors each year, more than the whole of Black Africa, even though they are desert countries and are just about the size of South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal province. I
have a family member, and then they went to Ghana, of all places. The main highlights, from what I can tell, is that she saw elephants, which is her favorite animal. A medical public health internship that she was on in Ghana, and then she didn't stay for long. She just did the internship. She helped some people out, hopefully. She saw some elephants, and then she bounced.
Size doesn't matter, but the UAE, Qatar, and Bahrain were desert and dirt poor in the 70s, while the various African countries had trains, motorways, and functioning economies in the 60s. Why would an American, a Canadian, British, an EU citizen, Australian, Japanese, or South Korean want to go on holiday to Nigeria, Ghana, Uganda, or Congo, where grown-ups urinate and litter in public?
I've heard people do that in China too. So it's not just like Africa does that, but again, it's definitely not like, oh, I want to go to Uganda and see people piss on the road.
Culture of maintenance, prevention, precaution, and a futuristic foresight incorporated into their worldview. So before they go or before they decide on where to go on holiday, they do make inquiries like healthcare, non-existent; safety, non-existent; emergency services, non-existent; decent hotels, non-existent; rule of law,
In Africa, they had all this infrastructure and this booming economy and whatnot, and then to be fair, all of that was whenever they were incorporated into the colonial situation with European countries. And then whenever the colonial powers had to leave because of public pressure, and it's like, hey, you're treating Africans like second-class citizens in their own countries, that's pretty mean. These Europeans bounced. Africans, they have a bunch of natural resources, but the Europeans, they officially leave, but then they still have their companies and corporations and their military in certain African countries that are facilitating resource extraction to Europe, which is why the Burkina Faso guy, Ibrahim Traoré, he kicked out the French militia or military recently. So it's in Africa, again, they're not just like victims per se. They get money from these deals with European countries extracting the resources, right? But then the leaders, they're corrupt. So then they just take the money for themselves, or they don't bargain, they don't do a collective bargaining agreement that's beneficial for the whole populace. In the Arabian countries, they, because of the oil money, they're able to reinvest the money and help their citizens out, get education, and do STEM, healthcare and hospitality, all these different things, financial sector. They're a big boom in Dubai and Doha and all these places. Financially successful, diversification, and cool architecture projects is all really awesome. So they reinvest the oil money and then stimulate their economy and then enable their citizens to gain skills and to be a really productive society. Tourism comes in because people are like, oh my gosh, this is a great country, and they're becoming a little bit more tolerant towards tourists and be like, hey, just don't be sexually debaucherous whenever you come to our Arabian countries, and then we'll let you just go on vacation here. In Africa, they have these resources as well, but they're not very good about sharing the wealth with their populace whenever they do get wealth. The rich people in Africa, the leaders, they just hog the money, they waste the money, or they're just like, they don't think it out as well.
Existence. Police service absolutely corrupt. Driving style similar to lions in the wild. Why would they want to come to such a place? Would you like to know the irony? Even black Africans themselves don't want to visit other black African countries.